Rumpelstiltskin.
You know my name.
Released November 24th, 1995. Directed by Mark Jones. Written by Mark Jones and Joe Ruby. Physical copies of this movie are out of print. You can find the VHS or DVD online if you look hard enough. I bought this copy on Amazon, used in the mid-2000s. I want to say 2005 or 6, somewhere in that time. I paid $5 for it. The cheapest I've seen it on eBay for lately is around $30, $40, and that's for a scratched up version. Of course, I'm not interested in selling it because it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Yes, I'm serious. So today I wanted to go a little bit into the history of this movie, my experience with it, the reasons I love it, and why you should give it a shot if you haven't watched it yet. One of the most common things people do is compare this to the movie Leprechaun.
I'm a leprechaun, me dear.
A lot of people say it's a Leprechaun ripoff. Now, I wouldn't go that far. It's definitely part of these fairy tale horror movies of the 90s. Leprechaun being the most iconic of them all, but you also had Snow White, Little Red Riding Hood, and my favorite, Rumpelstiltskin. Mark Jones, who wrote and directed the original Leprechaun, also happened to write and direct this movie. He produced Leprechaun 2, but he wanted to make something else instead of doing Leprechaun 2. So we end up with Rumpelstiltskin. It had over triple the budget of Leprechaun. You see, Mark Jones actually wrote for shows that Joe Ruby created. Joe Ruby created Scooby-Doo with Ken Spears. Later they created the Ruby Spears Company, and Mark Jones worked for them there. This is an interesting coincidence for me because my last video was showing off my Scooby-Doo VHS collection. And as I mentioned before, this DVD is out of print. They don't make new copies. There was never a Blu-ray release for this movie. Google Play and Apple TV both let you rent it for $3.99, and they let you buy it for $9.99. So at least it has that going for it, but this movie needs a Blu-ray release. So let's take a look at the actual DVD itself. The DVD menu is pretty standard for the time. Nothing too crazy or exciting going on. So we'll hit play. We open up in the 15th century. We get a little bit of a backstory here about what's going on. Very similar to how Leprechaun opens up. We essentially see how he gets imprisoned in Jade and how he gets set free in modern times. And I gotta tell you, Rumpelstiltskin is played by Max Grodenschick. Some of you might know him from Deep Space Nine, but this is where I personally know him from. This movie was on TV at some point, cable, late at night, and my brother forced it upon me. He used to scare me to death by hunching over and chasing me around the house. One of the things that always weirds me out about the beginning of this movie is where Rumpelstiltskin essentially brings her husband back for the first night, and then the next morning has transformed into Rumpelstiltskin. So does that mean what I think it means? And if so, straight to jail. Other than that scene, Rumpelstiltskin is a perfectly lovable horror villain. I mean, just look at this guy. This is nightmare fuel. I was 6, 7 years old watching this. This explains a lot. To be honest, I couldn't tell you what the first horror movie I saw was, but I can tell you it was either this or Child's Play 2. Either way, it was my older brother who decided to scar me with these movies. And I will say, I get it if you watch this movie and you're like, holy shit, that is bad, that is awful, trifling garbage. I have an emotional, weird tie to this movie. I actually shot a remake of this movie with my friend when I was like 15. We were always into making home movies, but that was like the most complete movie we ever actually made. Like, that's the kind of emotional connection. You know, my brother showed this to me. It's one of the first ones I saw. Then we have that little remake thing I did. Then I bought this DVD with money from my first job. So I would say Rumpelstiltskin himself is obviously the big appeal of this movie. The rest of the cast is a little forgettable, but that's mostly because they're outshined so hard by Max as Rumpelstiltskin. He's riding a motorcycle around at points with sunglasses on. I don't know how, but clearly Rumpelstiltskin watched Terminator 2 at some point. I don't know where he had the time to do that in here. We gotta place that somewhere in the Rumpelstiltskin timeline. Because he also is later doing a whole truck chase scene it's actually at the very same spot they shot the truck chase scene in Duel with the dune buggy, and that's what's in this scene. He's always smiling and laughing and using Shakespearean language.
Fuck, it's me!
He is just lovable to me. I'm gonna give him a little hug and cuddle the guy, you know? Although I can tell you, watching it for this review, again, it's churned up something dark and evil brewing inside me. I'm definitely gonna have nightmares of this guy tonight. Laugh at me all you want, but I think this is a genuinely scary movie, especially if you're young enough when you see it. I would say the same about the 90s miniseries It. If you were young enough when you saw it, it's still terrifying to you. If you saw that shit as an adult, like now in your 30s, I don't know if you would be as affected by it. I may be having a realization right now that this is way more Terminator meets Leprechaun than I ever thought it was. Because after the truck explosion, the charred up Rumpelstiltskin is still trying to kill them. Before I rate this movie, I want you to comment below, tell me if you have seen this movie, and if you haven't, go watch it, come back, then tell me what you think. If you don't want to pay to rent it, I think someone has uploaded a VHS rip onto YouTube, which in itself is pretty sick to be able to watch it on a VHS rip. If you're a fan of the Leprechaun movies, I guarantee you're going to at least have a good time watching it. It's worth seeing at least once. For me personally, and because I'm biased, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 hearts. Probably the highest review this movie has ever gotten. Laugh at me, call my review bullshit, do what you will. But I love this movie. If you like this video, check out this video and be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.